Yo, what's up, you guys? It's your girl, Tree, the LPC, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the Self-Aware and Effed Up podcast. Thank you for continuing to support and listen. When I tell you guys, this week's guest is absolutely amazing. I can't wait for you guys to hear from her because her story is very unique as a person, but also the things that she's been able to do in terms of her personal life and taking the things that she's experienced and allowing it to not only heal herself, but to help her heal others as well. I have with me today the real McKoy, Karen McKoy. She is a Master Resilience Strategist. She's an artist. She's an author. She is a grief counselor. She does it all. She is absolutely amazing. And I cannot wait for her to share a little bit about her journey and how she got wrapped up in all of what she does and how she helps people. So without further ado, please welcome to the Self-Aware and Effed Up podcast, Miss Karen McKoy. Hey, Karen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm excited to talk to you because your story just really stood out to me when we connected. And I just can't wait for you to kind of share a little bit about yourself and really, just to hear more about your story, because I feel like what you do is such powerful work. And I just want everybody to be able to kind of learn from you and hear from you. So we can go ahead and actually get started by just having you tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
I am the real Karen McKoy, as I've been dubbed by a friend of mine. And it's because I'm multifaceted. I do, after the death of not one, but two children, the first child, oh, wow, it's been 16, 17 years ago. Wow. I kind of went in a cave. And so now, after the second child, I kind of started doing a lot of things. I didn't want to. So she kind of said, you do so much. You're multifaceted. So I've written a book. I wrote a book after my son. I moved from Colorado to Alabama in 17 days.
Alabama? Okay.
Yeah. So it's, yeah. I'm originally from Alabama. And my husband's military, 28 years, 7 months. And I used to have the hours down because I was tired of that life, but okay. I digress. And so we retired, he retired in Colorado. And then after my son's death, waited a couple of years, COVID happened. And then I was just like, yeah, I want some land. We have Rotties, we breed Rottweilers.
Oh, so wow.
We have 5 Rottweilers, little babies, yeah. I wanted land for my dogs. So we, told my husband, hey, let's move. So during COVID, in the midst of COVID, packed up. And the people that wanted to buy our house said, well, they wanted to move in fast. And they wanted to move in because they're kids. So that meant I had to do it in 17 days, girl. God.
Wow.
So, yeah. So that's why I say I'm multifaceted. I can make it all happen. You need it to happen. I can make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of movement that quickly. I was just like flabbergasted by the move from Colorado to Alabama. Cause I mean, I understand being a country girl. I'm a Georgia girl, but that's a big jump. So
I was tired of shoveling snow.
Oh yeah. Well, that'll do it. So I definitely get that. Yeah. So you have obviously all of these, you wear a lot of different hats. And, one of the hats that you wear and still wear, is mother. And I always tell people, it losing someone is difficult. But to me, I've always looked at and it's always been the most painful to me when I see a parent losing a child. And that type of grief to me is just a different layer and different level of grief. How did you navigate the loss of, we can just even start with the first loss, how did you navigate through that to begin to use this to help others?
Well, my daughter. So first of all, my daughter committed what we call in the legal system murder suicide.
Okay.
So I had to wrap my head around, first of all, that my daughter committed suicide.
Mhm.
And then in the same vein, I had to wrap my head around she took her daughter.
Wow.
And so, and this happened as in Atlanta, as a matter of fact. And so I didn't know how to navigate that. So that pain was a little different. I was paralyzed in my mind, my whole faculties and everything. I was just paralyzed. I didn't know what to do. So I put on my, what I call my good Christian girl panties. And I did what, I was like, hey, death is part of life. You know, my grandmother was like, you got to move on. And I'm just like trying to. And every step I tried to take, it just didn't work. So I was just like, I didn't give up on God. I didn't, throw it away. I was just like, God, I know you put me here. So what you gonna do? Like, I need you to help me move. And so I eventually started moving, literally started having to make phone calls. And my way of being safe in that was I had to call her dad, and I'm the mother of 7 children. So this was my oldest daughter and my oldest granddaughter. Right. Okay. So I'm having to get on the phone with my ex-husband and give this news, start relaying this news. And I couldn't say it. I couldn't say my daughter is dead. So when I got on the phone, I said, she's gone. And my ex-husband's just like, where'd she go? It's like, did she move somewhere? So we're having this back and forth. And
Gotcha.
I could not formulate the words in my mouth to say it. So he's like, where's she gone? And then I was like, she's gone with your mom. And my mother-in-law had passed in 2000. So now that was 2007. So then, he went through his little emotions on the phone. And I was like, so you got to tell the kids. Right. And so I got off the phone. And I was like, okay, I got that done. I got somebody else. So it's basically I passed the buck. Somebody else can give the bad news. Right. But I forgot I had to tell my granddaughter's dad. And so I got paralyzed. I just remember just sitting there like this for probably about 3 hours. And because it was so public, I had to be hiding in the because what do you call it? The news people and all of that. So they had me in the office. And so I was kind of like in the office away from, because everybody wants the story.
Right.
And I didn't have the story. So, so the fast forward, walking away from that, it took me 3 years to say my daughter and my granddaughter was dead. And that involved counseling. That involves some screaming. That involves some, God, I'm pissed at you. That involves some, I don't want to do this no more. That involved, God, I said I'll do your work and this is what you're doing. So it was a lot of anger. I stayed angry for a long time. And I remember it was around December that I finally said, my daughter is dead. And what do y'all want me to do? And that's once I said she was dead, that was when I was able to really get rid of that anger. Because how do you be angry with somebody that's not here anymore?
That's a great question. I think I'm dealing with some anger right now myself. So I definitely can relate to that. Because when someone does something, that even if it's not like a murder suicide situation, but when they don't take care of themselves or when something happens suddenly, there is a lot of anger around that. But it sounds like for you being able to just say it was like a release or a break in something for you.
It was definitely a break. You know what? I'm dating myself. I'm going to date myself real good. Good Times.
Okay.
And you're on Florida Evans after James died.
Damn.
Yeah, that was literally. And when I tell you I was in the kitchen, I was in Germany at this time because somewhere in between those 3 years, I got married. I did some things. I got married, moved to Germany. And I always say after the 3 years, I always say I woke up from my coma and I woke up and I was singing that Karen White song. How did you get here? How did I get here? Like, where did this life come from? Right. But that's what happens when you put on your big girl Christian panties and you just start walking. Yeah. So it was James and Florida moment, and I just broke. And it wasn't it was not a bad thing, but I will tell anybody, if you feel like you're clogged up and you're pouring Drano down the drain with the hot water, and the drain is still slow, like you still feel that anger, you got to really just blow it out.
Yeah.
Literally. Just, just let it go. And that's the best thing that happened to me, because moving forward, when my son was killed, my son was murdered. So when that happened, I got something taken from me. Yeah. And so now we're dealing with, because people are like, well, you've been through this before, so you know how to navigate these waters. Hell no, I don't.
Right. Like, what? That's crazy.
Listen, those kids, and this is the thing, my two children that have passed away were both born December the 17th, 7 years and 7 minutes apart.
Wow.
I turned around and I had twins who were 7 minutes apart. My favorite number is 7.
Okay. The number of completion.
Yeah. So it was, so after that, I just felt like I did go back in history. I would always tell people I use the past for information only, right? So I had been through that before. Like, I have had to stand beside not one, but 2 coffins. But now I'm over on this side. My son didn't choose to die. My daughter chose to die. Yeah. So I would tell people, no, birthing them was different and their death is different. So, but I did stay self-aware to realize in the very beginning that I was in shock and I was in anger. I was angry. Yeah. And those were 2 things that I had to figure out how I was going to move forward, because the first 2 years of after my son's murder, I still couldn't breathe, Wow. So when you lose a loved one, like COVID's a good example, right? Yeah. People lost a lot. Right. It's a lot. They lost a lot. COVID leveled the playing field in life. It wasn't, dying, poor people dying. Everybody was losing people. And they were trying to figure out how to navigate through that. And that was when I was just like sitting there watching this. And I was just like, oh my God, what would I do if I wouldn't have been able to have seen my son, been there for my son or my daughter? So I had to do another, I guess you can say I did another journal to writing is my outlet. That's the one person I can be honest with is myself.
Yeah.
That's why all of my conversations are in my journal. Yeah. And then by the time they go in my book, they're Christian worthy.
Yeah, you put your Christian girl panties back on when you get ready to release the thoughts.
Yeah, we dress it up. Put some flowers on it. Make it to where it's a little bit more palatable for those that don't want to hear it the way I really want to say it. Because when you've lost child the way I lost my son, I wasn't trying to put on my big girl panties then. I was angry. I was mad. And I was screaming at the world. And I wanted people to hear me. But I realized God had shut my mouth because COVID happened. The world wasn't open anymore. Everybody had to come home with me. And nobody could do anything. And, so it was a different time, but I wasn't paralyzed. So that's the difference between the two. My daughter, I was paralyzed pretty much for about 3 years. Yeah. And my son, I just had to keep quiet because this was a different situation. It was very, very different, very, very public. It just really came to a close, as a matter of fact, this year. Wow. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully you had other outlets where you could share, what you were feeling with, in terms of being able to express it. Because having to hold on to that, I can imagine that must have been difficult, because one of the things with grief is being able to really talk about it.
So with my son's, then his murder was very, very public. There was nothing that I could talk about his death. So I focused more on my emotions of how I was feeling.
Okay.
And then that's when, again, I told you I take my journals and turn them into books.
Gotcha.
And so Beyond My Tears, Life After the Death of My Son was birth. And that was my way of how I got it out, was writing another book.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you expressed it with yourself more so than being able to kind of express it publicly. Got it. Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So a lot of what you do in terms of your grief work for yourself is writing, journaling, being able to kind of get it out in that way. How do you help others navigate through grief in terms of the people that you work with? And what advice would you give to like listeners in terms of steps they can take to kind of start to reclaim their life after they've gone through such a significant loss?
So actually, I have the 3 R's of life. It's called renew your joy, rediscover. So you renew your joy, which is you got to get joy back. You rediscover who you are, because you're not the same person after the death as you were the day before you got the news. So you rediscover who you are now, and then you got to reclaim your life. Like, what does that look like? And that's different for everybody. Reclaiming my life was packing up a 5,000 square foot house, packing it up in 17 days, moving into a house that's half the size, but I got 10 acres. So renewing my joy, rediscovering and reclaiming all in one package happened with me moving to Alabama. And so I tell people, I really worked in the beginning after my son. I would work with mothers who had lost children to death. Because why? That's my life. I knew what that looked like. So when a mother asks me, how do you do it, Karen? How do you get up in the morning? How do you still smile? How do you get up and comb your hair, brush your teeth and all that? I said, girl, some days I don't do none of that. Right? So, yes. But you got to be okay with not doing it. It's like when I did the TED Talk, right? I told the people, I took a bath, I did my hair, put on a little bit of makeup just to come and stand in front of you guys. It was a lot to do it. So, but I know that I needed to talk. I needed the platform so that mothers and dads, if I resonate with them, men grieve differently. But I do know a mother's question is, how am I supposed to get up and live another day without my child?
Yeah.
And I can answer that question, right? So I would tell a mother how I was after my daughter and my granddaughter's death. And then I would tell her how I'm living it now, because it's going on 5 years after my son's murder. So it's still a little fresh, but I feel stronger. I feel more impactful. I'm bolder, I'm stronger, I'm happy, but I know how to handle the sadness when it comes. So I would tell that mother, acknowledge the pain first. Don't keep saying, I'm okay. Don't keep saying, I'm going to pray about it, or I'm praying about it, or God's got me. All those things are true. But first of all, did you get angry? Who are you mad at? Are you mad at anybody? Are you mad at God? It's okay to be mad at God. Don't let your great-great-grandma and your grandmamas tell you that you can't be mad at God and you shouldn't question God. Jesus did. Why can't you? Right?
Right.
So, and then and that's what I call talk therapy, right? And so now I've incorporated art into it to where I paint, I call it slap and paint on paper. And that happened during COVID. And it's as I'm teaching you or showing you how to slap paint on paper in whatever form you want to do it in, we're talking about it. And I'm asking questions. I'm asking, how do you feel right now? Check in with your heart. Do your heart feel like it's going to explode? What do you have a headache? Like, what does your arms feel like? Do you feel like you're weighing, like you're carrying weights? What do your shoulders feel like? So you got to check in with your body. And so I do that after the initial consultation with the mother. She's pretty much going to tell me what she wants to do or what she don't want to do. She's just like, well, Karen, I want to talk to you. Okay, well, I have different programs. What time do you want to talk to me? Because usually 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning is when you want to talk to somebody.
Right.
So we can do that. You know what I'm saying? So and helping mothers get their joy back and really, really embrace the death of their child is also helping me heal too.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. Like I find and connect with that as well. In terms of like just my work as a therapist, a lot of times people are like, well, how are you seeing clients right now? You're going through so much in your personal life and you're navigating your own grief. And I always say, God knows what client to send you or what person to send in your path. God sent a client recently that had just also gone through a loss as well. And it was very similar to my loss. And I find myself now, actively having to help someone else navigate through their grief while also trying to process through my own. So I love that you said that, it does help. Like you would think that that would be the client that will break me down emotionally each week, but it is the client that, I feel like it also helps me to process those feelings, because I'm kind of where you were, like in that 3-year period after your daughter, where it's like, I'm gonna talk about it. I don't want you to do any of that, and then I'm hearing you say all of these great things like slapping paint on paper. And I'm like, okay, I got to get my life together. So thank you for that. And I think that that's going to help so many people, because you're talking about things like restoring your joy and finding your joy. And I find it very difficult right now. And my situation is the opposite of yours in losing a parent. How do you get to that place of joy again after such a loss? And how do you help them navigate through like finding that joy? Because it is hard. It is really hard.
Well, let me give you an example. Let me say this first. You find your joy in spurts. It's not that you get it back and it's like, oh, I got it. Now you're wearing a winter coat, and then when winter's over with, it drops. So I take it second by second, minute by minute, hour by hour, day by day. I reassess my emotions. Like I check in with myself. Like as I'm talking to you, I felt myself getting tight. So I had to, no, let go. This okay. You're in a safe space. Literally, you have to do that because death is a part of life, right? Where is it that we got to the place to where we started doing this thing? We start doing ourselves a disservice of like going through the most. We flip the script. It says that we're supposed to rejoice when someone dies, and we're supposed to cry when someone is born. But we done flipped it around. We right here having these big old gender reveals, these big baby showers, all the things before a child even comes into the world, right? And then some parents have to not only back away from that, they don't even get their child because they've done this big old thing and God didn't even let the child live, right?
Yeah.
So that journey is something that starts at day one, right? So then when you back away from that and you just look at it and it's like, okay, death is a part of life. So what am I going to do? Okay, am I going to be mad? Am I going to be angry? You got to acknowledge how it happened. First of all these things got to be asked first. Then you say, okay, what do you want to do? Right? So I get up every morning. Every morning I wake up and I open my eyes. I like, all right, God, you woke me up again. What do you want today? Because right now I don't even feel like getting out of this bed. Right. And so then somewhere in there, when I give up the fact that I don't feel like getting out of the bed, I don't want to do it. It's like this big old light of weight lifts up and lifts me out of the bed. That is some real stuff. So just imagine me getting up out of the bed and it's like, all right, fine. I feel like a puppet. But once my feet hit the floor, I'd be like, oh, okay, I can do this. And she's like, all right, Karen, you got this. And I go brush my teeth. It's like, okay, well, and I'm brushing my teeth. So we're one step forward, was one step closer to doing it. So now that I've moved on the ranch, it's called Easy Living Ranch. Okay. Everything here is easy, right? We are not struggling here, right? So we got the dogs. I mean, I got to get up, take dogs out. So that's something I give myself something to do, right? Because if I don't, I'm going to have a mess or the dog's going to be hungry. And then, the people going to come put me in jail for not taking care of my dogs because they do that here in Alabama. So I get up, take care of my dogs. Now that I'm up, I get my cup of coffee, my whole little regiment goes on. And by the time I'm putting the dog foods in the bowl, I got so much energy. And then I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you for giving me a little bit of joy right now. Then I'll go, like this morning, I literally got up because I knew I was going to have, my talk with you. And I had a deck, what do you call it? A ramp on my house that needs the people are going to charge me $350 to take it down because I want a new one put up. So I told my husband, I was like, no, I'll take that down. So he was just like, you is? Yeah, I'll do it. I have a tractor and her name is Marge. Marge brings me joy, right? My studio brings me joy. So I incorporate things in my life that is going to bring me joy.
Gotcha.
Now, if you find yourself struggling with it, then it's not going to bring you joy, right? My podcast, I realized I was doing it every day to start off because I had a lot to say. Then it kind of got to a point, I got sick and I was just like, oh my God, I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Hold on, Karen. It wasn't bringing me joy. So I kind of backed up a little bit. And then I thought about some other things. And it's like, oh, okay, God. Then it resonated with me. Do it once a week. I was like, oh, okay, I can do that. So these things were bringing me joy. So if it don't bring me joy, girl, I don't do it.
I'm here for that. I am here.
Life is too short.
Yeah.
Short. Yeah.
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 It definitely is. And I love that, finding those pockets of joy, because right after the loss, it's really hard to find that motivation to get out of the bed and to do things. I've been recently saying, if I do 2 things a day, that's it. And I'm okay with it. And a lot of times we struggle with giving ourselves grace to not have, be at 100%. I don't know if I'll ever be at 100% again, but learning to be okay with where you are. And I love that, taking it second by second or minute by minute thing, because it's so true. And I think a lot of people need to hear that, because the way that our culture is even set up in our system, especially in America, is like you might get 3 grief days or bereavement days, if that, and then you got to go back to work and you got to still perform and you still have to do those things. And it's a lot for a lot of people. So I definitely appreciate you sharing, that it doesn't have to look a certain type of way and that they don't have to be back to themselves, because it's all about really kind of redeveloping who you are now, this new version of yourself. So I really appreciate you sharing that part of your journey.
This is another thing I am personally grateful for, is I didn't have to go back to work. And a lot of the mothers I've talked to, that was their thing. It's like, I have to go to work. I got to show up. And so we had to, after my daughter, I did, but my son, I didn't. So I had to go back in there and pull out, what did you do when you went back to work? I went back and I had a breakdown, right? But I asked myself, why did I have the breakdown? And so I had to unpack some things. So here's the thing. This was the sign to my coworkers that it wasn't a day to mess with me. Okay. If I came in and I was all dolled up, the face was just slayed, you know what they say? You was beat to the gods. I don't know what they say these days, because I am out of the
Listen.
Okay. So rest to the 9, all of it. And the higher the heels, the less I wanted to deal with you. Okay. I'm 5'8", so that meant I put heels on, 2.5, 3 inches. I'm standing over. I don't want to bother. I don't want to be bothered. And I used to work with the public. So I wanted to deal with my public. I didn't have time to deal with coworkers. So I would tell my manager, because I was a manager at a store, and I would tell my manager, when she see me come in, she's like, oh, you looking all cute today. I said, yeah, and the day ain't the day that I want to be bothered with y'all. I did all this for the people that I have to serve. Because you know why? It's not their fault that life happened to me and I have to come here because the lights got to stay on, the car got the car notes, the bills. And when my daughter died, I still had 6 children that were still in school. My daughter was in her third year of college. So I still had children to show up for. Right.
Gotcha.
So I had to find a way to make that. So that could be a way. Do something that lets people know that today ain't the day. Like if you have to go to work, and I know people have to go to work, but do something. Put a flag up. Do something. So, because here's the thing, you'll find yourself going, you'll be in the grocery store. And this is why I'm saying do it. Because you'll go, I was in the gas station and the lady, the man, he got cussed out for nothing. Like I tell people, I'm saved, sanctified, and I'm full of some of the Holy Ghost, right?
Some of it.
I got this file that it comes up. So he got cussed out for nothing. Why? He got cussed out because I was triggered by a scent that smelled like my door. And I lost it. And he said, are you paying for gas on pump number, whatever? And I went off. What do you mean? What do you think I'm doing? I'm just standing, I went off. Gotcha. It wasn't his fault. You know what I'm saying? So when you have those days, just kind of have like a flag or have something to let people know. Because the other thing, you don't want people to treat you like you got the cooties, like you got AIDS, or like if you touch them, you're going to get leprosy. You lost a child, right? Yeah. And you just need time to navigate through this to decide what it looks like for you. Right. Because what it looks like for me is not what it looks like for everybody else. But I do tell people, the more this is made up, the less I want to deal with the world.
Well, I'm definitely here for that. So you've kind of navigated through some of this already, but I do still kind of want to just explore this a little bit. How do you personally connect with the idea of being self-aware and effed up?
Man, it's because I am. Like when you look at having to stand beside two coffins, and then you got to walk away from those coffins and deal with the world. What else is it? Like you look at this in your Christian vein, you're like, oh, bless the Lord, I'm highly favored. But then when you come over here in the real world and you look at it for what it really is, it's like, man, this is just effed up. Like, how in the world can I be going through this? I'm supposed to be one of God's chosen one. And like, does he not love me anymore? And then after my son, I was like, yeah, man, this messed up. And you messed up, you put effed up. That's what it was, because now somebody took something from me. Yeah. And so that's all it was. And I mean, I said that several times. And even having to deal with the trial. It wasn't a trial, but the people that took my son's life, having to navigate through that, and then to deal with all the life that was going on. I was like, man, this life is just, yeah. So I can relate to it. Yeah, I mean, and then here's the other thing. After the funerals, after those people that stood on the in front of you or pass by, it's like, well, if you need me, just call me. But when the funeral is over and you're sitting there and you're home alone, there's no more food being delivered at your house. There's no more phone calls. Then you're like, oh, and then you make a phone call or try to call somebody and they going back to work. They're living their life because life didn't happen. And then I just remember just like, man, that's just effed up. Didn't she say she was going to be there for me? But now she's treating me like I got AIDS.
Listen. So, yeah. Okay, you just preached a whole sermon, because I can't get on my soapbox today, but I will get on my soapbox later about that, because I'm like, I'm 3 months in and my phone stopped ringing, about 7 days after the funeral. So, I mean, I'm with you.
Well, you got 7 days?
Yeah, about 7 days. I got some decent friends.
I think it was because I lost children. I think because after my first one, people were they were there, but they didn't know. And then a lot of people, like, this is the real deal right here. Having your pastor, right? He's the one that's supposed to be there for you. Like, you can call or go get prayer or whatever. It was hard for him because he was the godfather to my daughter. So I couldn't lean on him. And then, so a lot of our conversations about how life is all effed up was like, okay, I'm spending more time over here in this. I know I got to keep these Christian girl panties on, but I feel this over here. So it's one of those things that depending on who you lose. And when you lose a child, like you said earlier, it's different. That child, both of my children came from me. I, carried them for 9 months, and then to have to sit there in front of their caskets was not what I had planned on. My life was planned on my children burying me,
right?
Not me burying my children,
Yeah.
So, and I just tell others, don't feel bad about something that you couldn't control. I mean, death is not even with my daughter committing suicide. I remember telling her, because it was like three committed suicide, like within a month of each other. Hers was a week. She was going through something because the young man that she had dated a week before had killed himself.
Wow.
And so she asked me, I remember driving down 75, never will forget it. Every time I drive down 75, I remember the spot and everything. She's just like, I wonder how his mother is doing. And I remember answering, I don't know. I got all my children. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know. Not knowing that in a week, I was going to know what that felt like.
Wow. Yeah. That's some tough stuff for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's hard for people. Sometimes it's hard for people to be there for you if they don't know.
That
like
part.
If they've never walked that, and they, like, all my friends have either didn't have children or had children, and to see me would see the reality of this could possibly happen to me. So I was just probably the reminder of what they didn't want,
Yeah, I can definitely get that. Yeah, that's a lot to process. Yeah. So
my tribe now, unfortunately, most people would love to be an AKA, a Delta, or all those sororities. So I tell people that I'm the president of the club that you don't want to join. Mothers who have lost children.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Definitely. Yeah. Well, Karen, I really, truly appreciate your time. Like, this has been very helpful for me. So I know that it will be very helpful for our audience members that are listening. And I just wanted to just really express my gratitude to you. I really thank you for your time and just being open and transparent about what you've gone through. How can people connect with you if they want to use your services or listen to your podcast or do any of the gazillion things that you offer? How can they connect with you?
My podcast is on Spotify, and it's called Life Interrupted Grief Recovery. And then to get me, you can reach me at KarenMcKoy.com. I'm the real McKoy. But Karen McKoy, it's KarenMcKoy.com. The thing you have to do is spell McKoy right. Because remember, I said I'm the real McKoy. So it's KarenMcKoy.com. And then I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all of the social media platforms as I am Karen McKoy. You just got to spell my name right. And or Google me, because what the girls say, I'm Googleable now, unfortunately, in the way that I have to be. And if you're an artist and you're listening and you want to know how to incorporate your art in your journey, slappingpaintonpaper.com is that platform. But KarenMcKoy.com gets you to me, and for sure.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I got Karen McKoy Speaks. She got all of the things, and just Google her. You can definitely connect with her. But her information will also be in the description of this episode. So make sure that you guys connect with the real McKoy, Karen McKoy. Thank you again for your time, Karen. Also, make sure that you follow me, Tree the LPC, on all social media platforms under the handle Tree the LPC. Until next time, be safe, be well, and make sure that you take care of your mental health.